Senate will come to order. Senate will come to order for this Tuesday, March 30th. Roll call, please.
Roll call, legislative day number 29, Tuesday, March 30th. Anderson? Here. Baldwin? Here. Beitman? Here. Boner? Here. Bouchard? Here. Case? Present. Cooper? Here. Driscoll? Here. Ellis? French? Here. Furphy? Here. Garou? Here. Hicks? Here. Hutchings? Here. James? Here. Kinski? Here. Kolb? Present. Cost? Here. Landon? Here. McEwen? Here. Nethercott? Here. Pappas? Here. Perkins? Perkins? Rothfuss? Here. Salazar? Here. Schuler? Here. Scott? Here. Steinmetz? Here. Wasserberger? Here. President Dockstader? Here. 30 present.
Prayer by Pastor Allison George, St. Paul's Lutheran Church.
Good morning. So Brandy and I were chatting, and as we take a breath this morning, I want you to just take a moment and look around at the space you're in. You've been here for a while now, so you maybe forget, but just take a good look around. This beautiful light streaming in, that we stand in this tension between present and past. Randy and I were talking, so St. Paul's is 137 years old this year, and Presbyterian Church, and all these renovations and redos that we try to honor the past as we live in the present. And so I'm just deep in appreciation for that today. So take a big, deep breath. For our scripture reading this morning on this Tuesday in Holy Week, I'm going to read to you from 1 Corinthians. For the message about the cross is foolishness to those who are perishing, but to us who are being saved, it is the power of God. For it is written, I will destroy the wisdom of the wise, and the discernment of the discerning I will thwart. Where is the one who is wise? Where is the scribe? Where is the debater of this age? Has not God made foolish the wisdom of the world? For since in the wisdom of God, the world did not know God through wisdom, God decided through the foolishness of our proclamation to save those who believe. For God's foolishness is wiser than human wisdom, and God's weakness is stronger than human strength. Consider your own call, brothers and sisters. Not many of you were wise by human standards. Not many were powerful. Not many were of noble birth. But God chose what is foolish in the world to shame the wise. God chose what is weak in the world to shame the strong. God chose what is low and despised in the world, things that are not, to reduce to nothing things that are, so that no one might boast in the presence of God. Let us pray. Lord Jesus, you have called us to follow you. Grant that our love may not grow cold in your service, and that we may not fail or deny you in the time of trial. For you live and reign with the Father and the Holy Spirit, one God, now and forever. Amen.
Boner. Back. Lead us in the pledge.
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Reading correction, approval of the journal. Will the reading clerk please read the journal committee report?
Mr. President, your Journal Committee reports that the Journal of March 29, 2021 has been read and recommends that it be approved. Senator Kolb, Chairman.
Any objections? There being none, the report is adopted. New business. University of Wyoming Family Practice is still available for assistance if needed. We appreciate Pastor George for helping us with the prayer. And today in Wyoming history, in 1909, the Army decommissioned Fort Washakie as a military outpost and turned over to the Shoshone Indian Agency, that outpost. The graves of Washakie and Lewis and Clark Expedition Guide Sacagawea are located on the grounds at the fort. The site is included within the present-day Wind River Indian Reservation. I visited that site. It's interesting. Quote for the day: if you think you are too small to make a difference, try sleeping with a mosquito. Dalai Lama. Session status. Tomorrow is the last day for bills to be reported out of committee in the second house. Also, this notice, your courtesy fund assessment is in your mailboxes, senators, so please check those today. And a heads up on these concurrence requests, if you'll check your emails for those are located there. Messages from the House.
From the House of Representatives, March 29, 2021, message number 328. Mr. President, the House adopted Joint Conference Committee number 1 report on House Bill number 1, General Government Appropriations 2. Ayes 52, noes 7, excused 1. Message number 327. Mr. President, Senate File 36, for-profit public benefit corporations failed to pass the House third reading by the vote indicated. Ayes 19, noes 41. Message number 333, March 29, 2021. Mr. President, the House did concur on Senate amendments to House Bill number 52, Wyoming School Protein Enhancement Project. Ayes 55, noes 1, excused 4. March 29, 2021, message number 334. Mr. President, the House did concur on Senate amendments to House Bill number 122, Hunting and Fishing Access Reliable Funding. Ayes 36, noes 20, excused 4. Message number 329, March 29, 2021. Mr. President, the Senate File 56, Wyoming Gaming Commission Modifications and Corrections, passed on third reading in an amended form. Ayes 46, noes 14. House respectfully asks the Senate to concur by adopting listed amendments. Message number 330, concurrence requested, March 29, 2021. Mr. President, Senate File 120, investment of state non-permanent funds, passed the House on third reading in an amended form. Ayes 48, noes 12. The House respectfully asks the Senate to concur by adopting amendments. Message number 331, concurrence requested. Mr. President, Senate File 2, School Facilities Project Prioritization, passed on third reading in an amended form. Ayes 59, excused 1. The House respectfully asks the Senate to concur by adopting amendments. Signed, Wendy Harding, House Chief Clerk.
Thank you. Once again, your concurrences, they're on your email if you need those. This time we will move to concurrences that are requested. Senator Case, are you ready on message number 317? We lost Senator Case. Let's move on to the next one. Senator Baldwin, are you ready on message number 320?
I am, Mr. President. I would move concurrence on message number 320, referring Senate File 52. I would move that concurrence. Fellow senators, go ahead.
Let's have the reading clerk please reading the message.
Message number 320, referencing Senate File 52, insurance, mental health, and substance use parity.
Now go ahead and move it again, Senator. You did a good job.
Very good, thank you. I move for concurrence on Senate File 320, referencing Senate File 0052, insurance, mental health, and substance abuse parity. Fellow senators are the other side of the building. Made a couple of small changes. Number one, if you'll see on page 3, line 10, they just took out remote. It was just an unnecessary word and redundant. They took it out. The second thing they did is just change the effective date. The original effective date said April 1st, and we're still going to be here April 1st. So that really wasn't possible. It won't be through. So they just changed the date and inserted December 1st, and that's all they did. I would encourage your aye votes on this concurrence.
All right, the motion is that the Senate do concur on Senate File 52. Discussion, Senator Scott.
Mr. President, I do not have a copy of this. I do not know what's in it. if it's in the email, it's going to take me a week to find it. Mr. Chairman, I'm going to vote no on all these concurrences, but I do not have a copy. I do object to the way it's being handled.
Thank you, Senator. We are adjusting to different times. For those who do not have it on their email, there are copies up here on the front desk that you can take a look at, hard copies. I'll just pause for just a moment while everybody kind of collects their copies, and we'll just stand down for just a minute here.
Did you get all of them?
Okay, Senators, this is what we're going to do. Get time to collect that. Again, part of, as we adjust to things as we move through, move in and out of the effects of COVID and get this session underway. Let's do this. Let's go to standing committees. Reading clerk, please review standing committees.
March 29, 2021, Mr. President, Committee number 12, Rules and Procedures, to whom is referred House Bill 92 engrossed revisers bill, respectfully report same back to the Senate with the recommendation that it do pass amended. Ayes Senators Grew, Hicks, and Rothfuss. Excused Senators Dockstader and Driscoll. Senator Hicks, acting chairman. March 29, 2021, Mr. President, Committee number 2, Appropriations, to whom is referred House Bill 188 engrossed irrigation district loans, respectfully report same back to the Senate for the recommendation that it do pass. Ayes Senators Guru, Hicks, Kinski, Perkins, and Steinmetz. Senator Perkins, chairman. March 29, 2021, Mr. President, Committee number 8, Transportation, Highways, and Military Affairs, to whom was referred House Bill 190, Vehicle Titles for Non-Resident Owners, respectfully report same back to the Senate with a recommendation that it do pass. Ayes Senators Anderson, Furphy, Landon, McEwen, and Pappas. Senator Landon, chairman. One more, Mr.
Okay,
President.
go ahead.
March 29, 2021, Mr. President, your committee number 4, Education, to whom is referred House Bill 173 engrossed School Finance Funding 2, respectfully report same back to the Senate with a recommendation that it do pass amended. Ayes Senators Beitman, Ellis, Salazar, and Scott. No, Senator Rothfuss. Senator Scott, chairman.
Thank you. Once again, members of the Senate, we will move forward and we'll come back to concurrences a little bit later. Senator Landon.
Mr. President, absent objection, House Bill 254, which passed out of committee last night in transportation, has some money in it. I would.
Sir,
ask-
could you say the bill title of it? Oh, I'm just informed up here. It has yet to be read in, sir. So you just hold that thought.
Oh, well, thank you
And
very much.
And we're going to come back to you. I
First time
promise.
I've been out ahead of anything this week. Thank you, Mr.
You're out
President.
over your skis, my friend. Okay. Majority Floor Leader.
Mine have been read in. Absent objection, I would ask House Bill 96, Treatment of Animals, be moved from corporations to ag.
That's 76, sir.
96,
96.
Treatment of
corporate-
Animals.
Okay. Absent objection 96, moved from corporations to agriculture.
Mr. President, I would, absent objection, I would move House Bill 158, Local Land Use Planning, be moved from corporations to agriculture.
Absent objection 158, moved from
We're
corporations to
saving lives
agriculture.
today.
Okay.
Mr. President, absent objection, I move House Bill 159, Liquor Manufacturer Regulations, be moved from corporations to transportation
Hmm.
of alcohol.
Oh, you amended it. Okay. Absent objection, 159, move from corporations to transportation.
Drink and drive.
Liquor manufacturer regulations.
Okay, Senator Landon, it's all yours. All right. All right, let's go back. Any further privileges? Let's go back to, let's move forward. Folks, you're going to really appreciate a regular session next year, won't you? Later, yeah. So, okay, let's go to second readings. House Bill 17, second reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 17, range management and military training areas.
There are no amendments. House Bill 17 having been read two separate times. The question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Go ahead, Senator. Senator Pappas.
Thank you. There was a question on first reading and I did get the answer from the good, for the good senator from Bates Creek.
First reading of this bill. Okay.
First, oh, range management,
Yeah, so we're on range management. You okay with that?
second reading, right?
Yeah, we're on second reading
Yes.
of range management. Go ahead.
Yeah, so the first reading, there was a question and I
Okay.
got the information. Question was on the active leases at the training center up north. The animal units are 12,340 animal units on all the active leases right now. And the average of that is $30.78 for each animal unit. So that equates, and that's 2020 numbers. So that's $379 plus $1,000. So I hope that answers the good senator's question. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate you bringing that up. Again, we are on second readings, House Bill 17. House Bill 17 having been read two separate times. The question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. House Bill 41, second reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 41, interstate crowdfunding exemption amendments.
There are no amendments. House Bill 41 having been read two separate times. The question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. House Bill 43 is second reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 43, digital assets amendments.
Mr. President,
Senator Driscoll.
absent objection, I would ask the House Bill 135 be laid back one more day.
And we're on 43, sir. So
I'm
just,
sorry,
yeah, we're getting there. Be patient.
blew it.
Okay. House Bill 43, there are no amendments. House Bill 43 having been read two separate times. The question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. House Bill 135. Thank you, Senator Driscoll.
President, absent objection, I ask House Bill 135 be laid back until we get the alcohol bill out of transportation.
Absent objection, it has been moved. Okay, thank you. We're on to House Bill 179 now. House Bill 179, second reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 179, optional municipal tax election.
There are no amendments. House Bill 179 having been read two separate times. The question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it's so ordered. House Bill 195, second reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 195, Wyoming Medical Review Panel repeal.
There are no objections. House Bill 195 having been read two separate times. The question is, shall the bill be read a third time? There, hearing no objection, it is so ordered. House Bill 197, second reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 197, Connect Wyoming Program federal funding.
There are no amendments. House Bill 197 having been read two separate times. The question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. House Bill 198, second reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 198, University Water System.
There is an amendment.
House Bill 198, second reading amendment number 1 to engrossed copy, page 3, lines 6 through 9, delete.
Senator Furphy.
Mr. President, I withdraw second reading amendment number 1. Thank you.
You are a popular man today, Senator Furphy. Amendment has been withdrawn. That is second reading amendment number 1 to House Bill 198. House Bill 198 having been read two separate times. The question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. House Bill 207, second reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 207, coal-fired generation facility closures, litigation funding.
There are no amendments. House Bill 207 having been read two separate times, the question. Oh. I'm not showing one, but there will be one. Okay. There it is. Okay. Senator Ellis. Running two separate lists here. There is no Senator Ellis. Anybody want to fill in for Senator Ellis? We are on House Bill 207, coal-fired generation facility. Let's go ahead and read in the amendment.
House Bill 207, second reading amendment number 1 to engrossed copy, page 5, line 5, after.
All right, we do have a senator missing in action. We're going to come back to this one, folks. House Bill 229, second reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 229, Livestock Identification Choice Act.
There is an amendment. Please read in the amendment.
House Bill 229, second reading amendment number 1 to engrossed copy, page 1, line 4, after.
Senator Steinmetz. Wow, we're just missing our senator. Okay, Senator Hicks, do you want to help or are we turning it over to Senator Steinmetz?
Mr. President, I move second reading amendment number 1 to House Bill 229. And for an explanation of the amendment, I would ask that you call on the good Senator Steinmetz.
Senator Steinmetz, happy to have you here. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. This just simply changes the effective date to immediately. So ask for your favorable consideration.
Discussion or questions on the amendment? Being none, all those in favor, the question being called, all those in favor of second reading amendment number 1 to 229, House Bill 229, all those in favor say aye. Those opposed, nay. The amendment has passed. We are back on the bill. House Bill 229, having been read two separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. Let's come back to House Bill 207. Second reading of the Senate House Bill. Let's, for the record, reading clerk, read that in again.
House Bill 207, coal-fired generation facility closures, litigation funding.
There is an amendment. Please read in the amendment.
House Bill 207, second reading amendment number 1 to engrossed copy, page 5, line 5, after.
Thank you. Senator Ellis, glad to have you. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move second reading amendment number 1 to House Bill 207. And senators, this would just require that if the Attorney General's office hires outside counsel, that outside counsel be willing to provide an itemized list of expenditures for all the funds that are appropriated, and making that available and maintained through the governor's office. Understandably, the report or the bill has some annual reporting requirements, so that would be included in that, but we want to make sure that those are available to the public on a more frequent basis. And the purpose of bringing this at senators is just so we can keep an eye and make sure that the legal costs are just something that the public's aware of, so that we know how these dollars are being spent. So hopefully you'll vote in favor of this amendment. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Questions or discussion for the sponsor? Let's go to Senator Hicks.
Mr. Chairman, on and against the amendment. I think that we currently have an adequate system in place. I'm always a little attentive to when we write laws that say that you have to follow the law, and I think that's what this amendment does. I think we currently have an accounting procedure in place, and we have access to public records in place. Just to put another burden on here to say you're going to follow the law, I think this is an unnecessary amendment. It's not needed. On and against the amendment.
Further discussion on the amendment. Further discussion. Senator Ellis, do you want to respond?
Thank you, Mr. President. Just to follow up on that, I think there might be some confusion down the road of just how specific we want to look, or the information, how specific we want it to be. And so my goal, Mr. President, in bringing this amendment isn't just to say legal costs for the entire litigation added up to $50,000 or $100,000. I do think that it would be helpful for the public to be aware of the hourly rates of the attorneys that are working on this. Again, if they're being, if we're utilizing outside counsel, to start having some appreciation for how much each report might cost if we need technical reports or other expertise weighing in. I just think this clarifies that it's not just some lump sum saying, well, we spent $300,000 on the litigation, without making sure that the public and members of this body have an appreciation and understanding of how we got to that amount. on and for the amendment.
Thank you, Senator. Question on the amendment. Question is, a question being called. All those in favor of second reading amendment number 1 to House Bill 207, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Noes have it. Okay, amendment fails. House Bill 207, having been read 2 separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. Skip down now, we're down to House Joint Resolution 9. Reading clerk, House Joint Resolution 9, second reading of the Senate, or of the House resolution.
House Joint Resolution 9, local government investment in equities.
There is an amendment.
House Joint Resolution 9, second reading amendment number 1 to engrossed copy, page 3, lines 9 through 16, delete.
Senator Perkins, before that, Senator Ellis, I apologize, you are hidden behind the screen, just like a good reading clerk. Go ahead, Senator Perkins.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd move second reading amendment number 1 to House Joint Resolution 9 and ask the body to vote aye. Mr. President, before I launch into the second reading amendment, there was a question yesterday about whether or not towns could do this and why this constitutional amendment is necessary. I refer to Article 16, Section 6 of the Wyoming Constitution, which says under A, it says neither the state nor any county, city, township, town, school, district, or other political subdivision shall, 1, loan or give its credit or make donations to or in aid of any individual, association, or corporation, except for necessary support of the poor, or in under 2, subscribe to or become the owner of capital stock of any association or corporation. Then comes the biggie. Then it was amended. This amendment happened in 1996, and it was a little bit modified again in November of 2016. So the exceptions to that general prohibition against owning stock is that either A, funds of public employee retirement systems and the permanent funds of the state of Wyoming may be invested in such stock under conditions that the legislature prescribes. And also, or the legislature may provide by law for the investment of funds not designated as permanent funds of the state in capital stock or any association or corporation, and may designate which of these funds may be invested. The legislature may prescribe different investment conditions for each fund. Any legislation establishing or increasing the percentage of any fund that may be invested under this subparagraph shall be passed by 2/3 vote of all members of each of the 2 houses voting separately. And so that's the general prohibition. And that's why if we're to allow political subdivisions or political subdivisions of the state to invest their money in reserves in the same way that the state of Wyoming has, that's why this is necessary. So what this amendment does is it continues to try to work on the ballot statement to try and explain in a little bit clearer language about this amendment and what it does. So it just modifies it. We have this new ballot statement simply as you read. The Wyoming Constitution has been amended to allow the state to invest in equities such as the stock of corporations and other associations. The funds of counties, cities, and other political subdivisions still may not be invested in equities under the Constitution. The adoption of this amendment would allow the legislature to authorize funds of counties, cities, and other political subdivisions to be invested in equities, including stocks, as the state may invest its funds. Legislation authorizing the investment of political subdivision funds in equities would require 2/3 vote of the legislature. So it's just an attempt to try and clarify that, provide a little bit of background on why that's necessary for this ballot proposition if it were to be successful. And I think gives people a little bit clearer understanding of what it is they're voting for with respect to this ballot proposition. And it would stand for questions and would ask for your favorable consideration.
Questions for the sponsor? Let's go Kinski, Rothfuss in that order, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yesterday's discussion, there was some concern that people reading the ballot proposition might think that the town mayor was going to be investing in equities as opposed to it's going to be with the Y-Star account at the state. And is it your intention that this would clarify that that's not the case, that it's going to be the state investing the funds on behalf of the cities, towns, and counties, or do you intend that some of the counties, cities and towns, the larger ones with larger reserves may actually do the investment on their own rather than through a Y-Star similar account? Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Rothfuss.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a concern with the language in the question. And as I read this through, I understand that there's additional information that's intended to be added by the sponsor, and I appreciate the new information. But when I start reading from the beginning and I see the Wyoming Constitution has been amended to allow, and this is actually ballot language for a constitutional amendment, I almost think that immediately begins with some confusion that might mislead that individual that's reading the ballot statement. The original language talks about currently the Wyoming Constitution provides, and then lays out the current circumstance and avoids the amendment language that it's previously been amended. So the concern I have is that we might not be quite there yet on this second reading amendment. It seems like a hybrid of the two language provisions would be preferable to avoid that confusion. So I'd ask the sponsor for, thoughts on that opening sentence and whether that could be restructured a little bit better based on the original wording in the ballot statement, Mr. President.
Thank you. We're collecting responses, questions, discussion for the sponsor before we go back. Any further? All right, Senator Perkins, back to you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The answer the first question about whether or not mayors or county commissioners could make their own investments, go down to the local stockbroker or even day trade on behalf of that. And the answer to that question is yes, if 2/3 of the legislature said that they could. So, but I expect that is not the case. So the Wyoming Constitution says that again, just like the state does, the legislature controls that and how that's invested. And so the answer to the question is, again, I think that if you'd have to convince 2/3 of the legislatures and on both sides to vote in favor of that. With respect to the language itself, there's working with staff to do this. This language is actually very, very close to the ballot proposition of 2015. And so it's just updated to reflect that this difference. So the opening statement, and it's very, very similar to the language of 2015, the last time that this section was amended. I have no particular pride of authorship, working with a long experienced staff member who's the former director of LSO, has been working on this language with him, and he's the primary author of it. If there are better successions, I have no pride of authorship and willing to work with anything that makes it clear and concise. But like I say, this comes back and to a large extent mirrors the last successful ballot proposition in this area. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator. Ready for the question? Question being called. This is on second reading amendment number 1 to House Joint Resolution 9. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The amendment to the resolution has passed. This is to the engrossed copy. Back on the question. House Joint Resolution 9, having been read 2 separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a 3rd time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. Okay, folks, before we move into 3rd, let's do just a brief privilege. Senator Schuler, you'll help me with this. You have a visiting commissioner from Uena County. I have some visiting commissioners from Lincoln County. If you'd stand and name your commissioner, then I'll name ours, and then we can stand and welcome them all at the same time. Go ahead, Senator Schuler.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yeah, I'm happy to introduce Eric South, who is the chairman of the Uena County Commissioner. He's done a great job over the years, and we're pleased to have him here. And I'll let you go ahead.
And joining him, Commissioner Jerry Harmon and Commissioner Bob King, and no doubt these gentlemen are down here considering their investments in equities. So let's stand and welcome them.
Welcome.
Welcome to the Senate, Commissioners. Let's move to 3rd reading consent list. Mr. Majority Floor Leader, do you have a consent list?
Mr. President, we do. Mr. President, I move third reading consent list for House Bill 10, COVID-19 Large Business Relief Program, House Bill 95, Game Roadkill, House Bill 102, Wyoming Preference Act 1971 amendments, House Bill 115, Bigger Trophy Game Animal Minimum Hunting Age, House Bill 144, Electric Vehicle Fee Updates, House Bill 150, State Budgeting and Expenditure Authority.
Mr. Majority Floor Leader, we don't have 150 on the list, so let's exclude that.
It's on my list. I'll remove it. It's got an amendment, I see.
Yeah, that's it. We have an amendment. So there we have it. Anybody like any of these bills removed from the list? Senator Landon.
Mr. President, I would ask that House Bill 95, Game Roadkill, please be removed from the list. I do have an amendment coming on that. I expected that it might be here by now, but hopefully by the time we get to it, maybe that amendment will arrive. Thank you.
Plan accordingly. Thank you, Senator. Any others to be removed from the list? All right. Having been read 3 separate times, the question is, shall these bills pass the Senate? House Bill 10, COVID-19 Large Business Relief Program. House Bill 102, Wyoming Preference Act of 1971 amendments. House Bill 115, Big or Trophy Game Animal Minimum Hunting Age. House Bill 144, Electric Vehicle Fee Updates. Chief Clerk will call the roll.
On the consent list, Anderson. Baldwin. Beitman. Boner. Bouchard. Case. Cooper. Driscoll. Ellis. French. Murphy. Guru. Hicks. Hutchings. James. Kinsky. Cole. Cost. Landon. McEwen. Nethercott. Pappas. Perkins. Perkins, no. Rothfuss. Salazar. Schuler. Scott. Steinmetz. Wasserberger. President Dockstader. On the consent list, 29 aye, 1 no. House Bill 10, are there any changes? Richard, aye to no. Rothfuss, aye to no. James, no. Case, no. McEwen, no. Guru, no. French, no. Kinsky, no. Closing vote. Closing. Vote closed. House Bill 10, 21 aye, 9 no. House Bill 102, are there any changes? Perkins, no to aye. Closing vote. Closing. Vote closed. House Bill 102, 30 aye. House Bill 115, are there any changes? Closing vote. Closing. Vote closed. House Bill 115, 29 aye, 1 no. House Bill 144, are there any changes? Ellis, aye to no. Closing vote. Closing. Vote closed. House Bill 144, 28 aye, 2 no.
Having received the affirmative vote, majority of the members elected to the Senate, House Bill 10, COVID-19 Large Business Relief Program, House Bill 102, Wyoming Preference Act of 1971 amendments, House Bill 115, Big or Trophy Game Animal Minimum Hunting Age, House Bill 144, Electric Vehicle Fee Updates have passed the Senate. House Bill 19, third reading of the House bill.
House Bill 19, Antique Motor Vehicles, sponsored by the Transportation Committee, an act relating to motor vehicles.
There are amendments. Please read in the first amendment.
House Bill 19, third reading amendment number 1 to engrossed copy, page 6, line 6, after.
Senator Landon.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would move third reading amendment number 1 to House Bill 19 and ask for favorable consideration. Senators, this is an effort to continue that grandfathering effort that we had on second reading. You might remember that we inadvertently pulled that language out. So this is putting language back in. You'll notice what this amendment does is that it grandfathers in prior to July 1st, 2021, and prior to the transfer of a vehicle. The opportunity for those who own these antique cars to simply operate them for the purpose of organized antique car club activities, parades, exhibitions, unless they want to take advantage of paragraph B in the bill, which is when we are encouraging them to get them out on the road so we can look at them and allow them to drive them a little bit more. If they're going to opt for paragraph B, then it would ask that motor vehicle liability insurance be carried on that car. They will, after all, be out on the roads and highways. And so that's what the amendment does. Would ask for your favorable consideration. Thank you.
Discussion on the amendment, questions on the amendment. We are on third reading amendment number 1 to House Bill 19. Question being called. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The amendment has passed. Third reading amendment number 1 to House Bill 19 has passed. Reading clerk, read in the next amendment.
House Bill 19, third reading amendment number 2 to engrossed copy, page 1, line 1, delete.
Senator Hutchings.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move third reading amendment number 2 to House Bill number 19. I've had several constituents that are really concerned about this bill, and they're really concerned mainly about the pushback on the year from 25 to 50. Several of them have cars that even though they would be grandfathered in, they're concerned that we are taking the liberty to move the dates back. So with this amendment, even though there's a lot of verbiage on the amendment, all it's doing is moving the year back to 25 instead of 50. I asked them why they were so concerned with that, and they mentioned to me that at least out of the 4 that contacted me last night, we talked about 3 different insurance companies that on their plans, they go to 25 years and older. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll sit for questions and ask for your favorable vote for this amendment. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Questions on the amendment? Senator Landon.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your Transportation Committee felt pretty strongly that we needed to reconsider this a little bit. 25 years, at least to us, felt like that really wasn't old enough to be considering these things antique cars. That was one of the initiators of the bill in the first place over on the other side. It's a policy decision. This would make a 1997 or 98 car an antique. It was our feeling on the committee that dating that back about 50 years would be a more legitimate antique car. And so That's where the committee landed. That's what we recommended out in the bill. And so I would ask that you resist the amendment. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Pappas.
Thank you, Mr. President. On and against the amendment. You know, in testimony in committee, the initial bill that came from the other house had 40 years in it. We even thought that was short. Now, going to 25 years, I have a 96 Yukon. I can't believe that's an antique car. So I think 25 years is certainly not old enough to consider antique. But frankly, if 50 years is a little too much, you know, perhaps on a third reading amendment, someone can bring back the 40 years. You know, I would probably be okay with that. But I believe that 50 years is probably a good spot for an antique vehicle. So I would suggest that we resist this amendment and hit the 50-year mark for all these older vehicles. Thank you, Mr. President.
I knew the senator from Fremont County would stand because he doesn't allow his cars to go antique. He just takes them over 300,000 miles. Senator Case.
Mr. President, I knew that you were thinking that, and this would help my 1993 Oldsmobile that I drove down here for 20 plus years and put over 400,000 miles on it. But unfortunately, the Oldsmobile's computer cratered last year. And so I can't find a new computer for an old Oldsmobile, so it's out of the running. So I don't have a conflict on this amendment, but I think you should vote no.
I stand corrected, over 400,000 miles. Who else do we have? Senator Scott.
Mr. President, my question is, are we considering this as a precedent for when we define senators to be antiques? Because I may have a conflict.
All right, Senator Bouchard.
Thank you, Mr. President. So the Antique Car Association actually defines 25 years as an antique. And various laws around the country go anywhere between there and 45 years. So we're already reaching further than what the industry looks at. And that what the problem is here we are in a third reading amendment and we still haven't nailed this down. I mean, so we should err on the side of less years, not more years. There are cars, as I stated, the one that the big black car that's got the crest with the I don't think it was an eagle, but it was a bird on the hood. I can't say that. So I cannot say the name of the. So anyway, that said, those cars were 1977, and that certainly is well with under the years that's in this bill. So I'm going to speak in favor of this amendment. And I think, but the fact that we're having this problem in the third reading shows that this bill is just not ready for prime time. So,
Senator Pappas.
Mr. President, for my second time, yeah, I agree that that's what the association says. However, I believe if we're going to put plates on a vehicle that say Pioneer, 25 years just doesn't get us there. And so I like seeing Pioneer plates on cars, but I just think that I can't put a Pioneer plate on my Yukon. It's just too new yet. But for me, it's on and against. And I apologize. I said possibly we could bring back this in a third reading amendment. What I intended was that this will have to go to a joint, if it passes, we'll have to go to a joint committee. And so we'll have to agree on that time with the other body. And so that's where we would possibly reduce it from 50 back to 40. But certainly 25 is just Not enough, in my opinion, on and against.
Further discussion, go back to the sponsor, Senator Hutchings.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I.
Oops, sorry, Senator Hutchings, let's wait and see if Senator Anderson has something for you.
Mr. President, the committee heard from the local car club, and they were okay with the 50. It seemed like a lot of people in the room were older and had older cars that fit in that 25-year, and they didn't believe that their car was an antique. So they were not opposed to the 50-year number. So that's why we agreed on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else before we go back to sponsors? Senator Hutchings, all yours.
Mr. Chairman, I say to the body, vote it up or vote it down. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Question on third reading amendment number 2 to House Bill 19. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay.
Ooh, division.
Amendment has passed. Division being called. Did I hear division being called? All those in favor stand.
Yeah. Man, you guys were loud. Awesome. Yeah.
Aye 14. Those opposed stand.
For my constituents, they'll be happy I bought.
No, 16. The amendment has failed.
All right.
Back on the bill. Senator Landon.
Mr. President, thank you. I have appreciated the debate on this bill. It came over to us from the other side, and we thought it needed some work. We've tried to do that as it moved along. I thought it might be helpful today, Mr. President, to run down where the law stands today, so that then you can evaluate this bill based on where we are at today. Basically, if the bill does not pass, then cars 25 years and older will pay a one-time fee of $10 to register their vehicle. A registrant then gets a Pioneer Wyoming plate, metal, to use for the rest of the vehicle's life or until that vehicle is transferred. A county treasurer may require proof of insurance at that time of the registration, but 10 years later, the person may or may not still be maintaining that insurance. Those $10 registration antique vehicles are only currently supposed to be operated as collector's items or for organized antique car activities, parades, exhibitions, tours, and other related activities, and will not be used for general transportation. That's why the bill arrived at the legislature this year. There was some concern, primarily in this community, that these cars were being driven back and forth to coffee clutches, to work. And so that begged the question, do we want the statutes to remain where they have been for many, many years, which is $10 for the life of the car and no proof of insurance? So what this bill would do is to update these fees. It would update the liability insurance piece if they choose to drive them, and a couple of other provisions. So I hope that helps, Mr. President. That's where we stand today. Thank you.
Further questions? Further discussion? Senator Bouchard, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. You know, I hear the concerns. I just don't see that many of these tags out there. I don't think I've maybe seen one. It seems like a simple fix. I mean, these are for trailer queens, the cars that go on trailers and they drag them to a car show, or they may take them to a car show. It's not supposed to be used for a tag that they drive the car for regular purposes. So what I didn't hear is I didn't hear any statistics from law enforcement or from anyone that is saying there's a problem other than a club said that there's a problem. I just don't hear any evidence that this is being abused. I mean, I'm sure there are people that do abuse it. However, it's really clear what it says. Vehicle owned and operated solely for the purposes of organized antique car club activities, parades, exhibitions, tours, and other related activities. The vehicle must be 25 years or older for this to happen. It seems to me there's a couple of more things that could be added, maybe a couple more sentences in the current law. I just think this bill's lumping everything in together into something that I just think it goes in a direction that we're making more complication.
Senator Pampas.
Thank you, Mr. President. Frankly, most of the vehicles aren't trailer queens. Most of the vehicles, at least in this community, actually are driven to antique shows and to parades. They're actually on the road. They're not trailered there. Some are, I'm sure. But testimony from the local club, in fact, the president of the club mentioned that he puts 500 miles a year on his car, okay? So that means it's on the road. Right now, they do, when they get the initial plate, they do have to show insurance. But I actually was speaking to the folks that provide the plates, and they say, we even hear folks on the way out the door saying they're going to drop the insurance as soon as they walk out the door. He said, and they said that that's very aggravating because they have no way to enforce insurance in subsequent years. So, and these cars are on the road, as testimony in the committee said, not a lot of miles because they're supposed to be driven on rare occasions. The committee thought, look, let's make sure that first of all, these are antique cars, make sure that they're old enough. Let's allow them to be on the road. We have no problems with these being on the road. There are issues here that where law enforcement has pulled over cars to find out why that particular car is on the road when it had a Pioneer plate on it. And they have better things to do than pull over cars like that. If we just allow them to be on the road, require them to have the insurance, and now we will register them. You know, it's only going to be $10 a year for them, but they're going to register every year. And if you've got an antique car, you can afford $10 a year to register your car. And then we will know they will have liability insurance. Right now, they 5,000 plus plates have been given out, but there's no way that the folks issuing plates know where these are. You know, these cars just drop off the face of the earth as far as our records. So I think this is a good change, and I ask you to support the legislation. Thank you.
Further discussion on House Bill 19. Further discussion. Ready for the question? House Bill 19 having been read 3 separate times, the question is, shall the bill pass? The chief clerk will call the roll.
House Bill 19 roll call. Anderson. Aye. Baldwin. Aye. Beitman. No. Boner. No. Bouchard. No. Case. Aye. Cooper. Aye. Driscoll. No. Ellis. Aye. French. No. Murphy. Aye. Guru. Aye. Hicks. No. Hutchings. No. James. No. Kinsky. No. Cole. Aye. Cost. Aye. Landon. Aye. McEwen. No. Nethercott. No. Pappas. Aye. Perkins. No. Rothfuss. Aye. Salazar. No. Schuler. Aye. Scott. Aye. Steinmetz. No. Wasserberger. Aye. President Dockstetter. President Dockstader? No. Closing vote. Closing vote closed. 15 aye, 15 no.
House Bill 19, having failed to receive the affirmative vote of the majority of the members elected to the Senate, House Bill 19 has failed to pass the Senate. House Bill 38, third reading of the House bill.
House Bill 38, Community Behavior Health Priority Populations, sponsored by the Labor Committee, an act relating to public health and safety.
There is an amendment. Read in the amendment.
House Bill 38, third reading amendment number 1 to engrossed copy, page 16, line 5 after.
Senator Schuler.
Mr. President. I'm Senator Rothfuss.
Senator Rothfuss. I'm okay with, oh, your name is on there too. Go ahead, Senator Rothfuss.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I move third reading amendment number 1 to House Bill 38. Senate, this was a concern that was discussed on Committee of the Whole, which was a little challenge of clarification with regard to indigent population in tiers 2 and 3 as to whether or not those classifications in tier 1 would include the indigent population where eligible. I went down the hall, met with some of the other sponsors and discussed it with them as well as Senator Schuler, and came to the conclusion that the intent was what this language in the amendment says, and that there might have been some ambiguity, there might not have been, but this certainly closes that. So this amendment provides a little bit of additional language you can see on page 16, line 5 and line 8, where as we look at tier 2, you would see tier 2 is priority population specified under earlier statute F, who do not otherwise qualify under tier 1. And then further clarification for tier 3 after G, who do not otherwise qualify under tiers 1 or 2. So in other words, if you qualify on one of the higher tiers, that's sufficient qualification. You don't look to the lower tiers, which was apparently the intent, but certainly wasn't clear to me from the language. The sponsors and the folks that worked on this agree that this is simply a clarification. No policy change intended, but it certainly gives me a little bit more comfort that you wouldn't be disqualifying people based on income in the higher classes, which was the concern that was discussed. So with that, urge a favorable consideration on the bill. Thank you, Mr. President.
Questions, Senator Schuler, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just wanted to add that it's a friendly amendment, and I think it just provides a little more clarification to the bill, and so I support it. Thank you.
Further questions or discussion? Question being called. This is third reading amendment number 1 to House Bill 38. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The amendment has passed. We're back on the bill, House Bill 38. Further discussion? Further discussion? Ready for the question? House Bill 38 having been read 3 separate times, the question is, shall the bill pass? The chief clerk will call the roll.
House Bill 38, roll call. Anderson? Aye. Baldwin? Aye. Beitman? No. Boner? Aye. Bouchard? No. Case? Aye. Cooper? Aye. Driscoll? Aye. Ellis? Aye. French? No. Murphy? Aye. Guru? Aye. Hicks? No. Hutchings? No. James? No. Kinsky? No. Cole? Aye. Cost? Aye. Landon? Aye. McEwen? No. Nethercott? Aye. Pappas? Aye. Perkins? Aye. Rothfuss? No. Salazar? Aye. Schuler? Aye. Scott? Aye. Steinmetz? No. Wasserberger? Aye. President Dockstader?
Aye.
Aye. Closing vote. Closing. Vote closed. House Bill 38, 20 aye, 10 no.
House Bill 38 having received the affirmative vote of members, majority of the members elected to the Senate, House Bill 38 has passed the Senate. House Bill 150. Third reading of the House bill.
House Bill 150, State Budgeting and Expenditure Authority, sponsored by the Appropriations Committee, an act relating to public funds and administration of government.
There is an amendment.
House Bill 150, third reading amendment number 1 to engrossed copy, page 3, line 14 after.
Senator Scott or Senator Perkins, either one, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd move third reading amendment number 1 to House Bill 150 and ask for the body's favorable consideration. Mr. President, what this amendment does is it tries to connect or interweave the two second reading amendments that we passed yesterday. And so what this, and additionally, the amendment makes a couple of tweaks to this amendment. So it in large part simply tries to sustain what we did, our actions yesterday, but tries to kind of create the two or merge the two so that it's a more workable solution. So what the differences between what we did yesterday and today are this, and this is, you find this on page 1 of the amendment, lines 13 through 30. It does the following. It requires a state agency to report to the governor if accepting federal funds will, 1, obligate the state or a public or a subdivision to increase a maintenance of effort, maintenance of equity, or a sometimes, and also this new principle we've come up with was this proportionality issue that did not exist when the legislature appropriated funds to the agency initially. It also expressly requires the state agency to report to the governor if it limits or otherwise impacts the state's taxing or appropriation authority. If you think of some of the current legislation we have, you're prohibited from reducing and sometimes required to increase appropriations or increase taxing authority. And so it simply requires an agency, if they're applying for those funds, to notify the governor of that fact when these federal funds come in. The report must also include the dollar amount of the impact and the percentage change for any maintenance of effort or maintenance of equity increase that happens. You find that on lines 32 through 44. This is the information that the governor needs in order to make the determinations regarding the governor's responsibility as the state's chief budget officer, as well as his obligation to notify the Joint Appropriations Committee relating to a possible special session as a result of the $10 million threshold that we imposed yesterday. Which is what we did in both the committee of the whole and the second reading amendments earlier. Paragraph Romanet 3 specifies an agency cannot expend or in particular disperse. They can't simply disperse think of a pass-through agency to other entities and federal funds until approved by the governor in writing. The governor's approval is in current law, but is added here with the inclusion of disperse. So it is clear that the approval is required if funds are passed through a state agency. And if an MOE maintenance of effort or maintenance of equity is increased. That's in page 2, lines 1 through 4. Subsection R, the first sentence connects the new language of what was subsection Q with the bill's provisions for notice and potential special sessions. So that's ultimately, if these certain thing happen, the governor has to notify us, and then we go through this process where the legislature may potentially call itself back into special session in the event that these things occur. And so it keeps that in there. The last sentence provides that if a legislature identifies the federal act in its authorization to accept the funds or in its appropriation of federal funds, then Q does not apply. In other words, the legislature has already appropriated the federal money. And so if the legislature has already acted to appropriate and spend that money, then it doesn't apply. The amendment on page 2, or the amendment 2 deletes the standing committee, the former committee of the whole and second reading amendments regarding the 10 million and reinserts it. So it puts it back with 2 changes. The maintenance of efforts requirements are specifically included as recognized impacts to the expenditure of state funds and the governor's exception authority. In other words, to allow the acceptance of federal funds without notification to JAC and potential polling for a special session is limited to public health, safety, and welfare situations. So it struck the provision that you could do it just to prevent the loss of funds. That was such a large exception that you could drive a fleet of trucks through it. And so that was removed. Overall, the amendment takes the good senator from Natrona County's maintenance of efforts concerns and combines it with the good senator from Goshen County's $10 million thresholds and impacts, as well as impacts on taxing appropriations authority, rather than trying to exempt specific agencies or federal funds for a specific purpose for the maintenance of effort provisions. And so on page 1, lines through 8 are simply conforming amendments elsewhere. So coming back to this, and at the end of the day, what happens is it keeps intact this responsibility or this idea that we would look at the effects of federal funds and accepting them on maintenance of efforts requirements. It keeps in that $10 million materiality threshold. And so, but it also arms the governor with information, even subject to even below the $10 million threshold. So the governor can determine whether or not this money should be accepted, because it may very well impact or increase these MOE requirements. The point is some federal money may just be too expensive to accept. And this provides both the governor at a lower level and the legislature involved at any time it's over $10 million to be involved in that discussion and about whether that's the right way for the state of Wyoming to go. I'll stand for questions and ask for your aye vote.
Questions or discussion? Senator Scott.
Mr. President, I'm for the amendment. Mr. President, the new stimulus money that we that the feds just passed and we just got is just plain full of all kinds of requirements, maintenance of effort, other requirements. This is a first stab, and I think a good one, at trying to deal with those in a rational way. I don't represent to you that it's going to be perfect. I think we're going to learn some things as we better understand what they've done to us in the next few months. But I think this will get us by for the next year or two till we get a better understanding of what they're doing. And as these things come, we've seen some of these before, but never on the scale that we're seeing them now. And I think we need to do something like this so that we just don't totally lose control over our spending. And so I urge the adoption of the amendment.
Questions or discussion on the amendment? Questions or discussion? This is on third reading amendment number 1 to House Bill 150. Ready for the question? Question being called. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Amendment has passed. Back on the bill, House Bill 50 having been read 3 separate times. The question is, shall the bill pass? Chief Clerk will call the roll.
Roll call, House Bill 150. Anderson? Aye. Baldwin? Aye. Beitman? Aye. Boner? Aye. Bouchard? No. Case? Aye. Cooper? Aye. Driscoll? Aye. Ellis? Aye. French? Aye. Murphy? Aye. Guru? Aye. Hicks? Aye. Hutchings? Aye. James? No. Kinsky? Aye. Cole?
Aye.
Aye. Cost? Aye. Landon? Aye. McEwen? Aye. Nethercott? Aye. Pappas? Aye. Perkins? Aye. Rothfuss? No. Salazar? Aye. Schuler? Aye. Scott?
Aye.
Aye. Steinmetz? Aye. Wasserberger? Aye. President Dockstetter? Aye. Closing vote? Closing vote closed. House Bill 150, 27 aye, 3 no.
House Bill 50 having been read 3 separate times. Excuse me, House Bill 150 having received the affirmative vote of the majority of the members elected to the Senate. House Bill 150 has passed the Senate. House Bill 95, third reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 95, Game Roadkill, sponsored by Representative Zwanitzer, an act relating to game and fish.
There is an amendment. Please read in the amendment.
House Bill 95, third reading amendment number 1 to engrossed copy, page 2, line 4, delete.
Senator Landon.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would move third reading amendment number 1 to House Bill 95. And my apologies to the body. It was totally on me. I'm still getting used to this new system of how we are track these amendments and get them going and get them through the process. And so my apologies for the late arrival on this. Senators, I have really struggled with this bill. And I indicated that to you on second reading, laying there awake last night. What the particular heartburn that I have with it is this certificate of prior authorization from the department. And I had these images of some of my good buddies out across the land. You know, they've got this letter of authorization in their front pocket, and they have one of those great big grills on their truck. And they're driving up toward your part of your neck of the woods, Mr. President, and a big 5-point buck deer jumps out there. Anyway, I just don't like the prior authorization piece. I don't think it's necessary for the bill. If we're going to do this and go to laws that allow people to pick up these carcasses along the road, it felt like to me, let's get that out of the way. If you go to Romanet 3I, I think that gives plenty of purview to the State Game and Fish Department to develop ways that they can allow you to go out and get those animals. It's referred to in the bill as a donation certificate. You go on over to page 3 and we're talking about, unless otherwise provided by rule, somebody desiring to possess one of these shall contact the department. I just feel like that's plenty in the bill to get this thing started. If we discover down the road that, boy, everything is slick and easy and good, we can always ride in there with some piece of prior authorization. But what this amendment does, Mr. President, it pulls out of the bill Romanet I, Romanet 2I. That does not kill the provision for scientific and educational collecting sorts of things. That exists somewhere else in the statute. It just doesn't allude to it in our roadkill bill. That's what this amendment does. It cleans that out of there. And I would ask for your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. We have some discussion. I have vehicles with those big bars on and a series of lights you bring on in 3 different switches, so they're important. Senator Driscoll.
Thank you, Mr. President. On and against amendment. Looking at someone that has one of those vehicles with 3 lights that probably doesn't want to hunt with it. I'm really sad this is third reading, so I can't bring an amendment for the Game and Fish to issue a hunting license for those that want to run them down. I don't think it's going to be a problem. If it is, we can come back and fix it. But I think we're going for a stretch for people that are driving the roads looking for something to kill. I'd encourage us to vote it down and let's send this crow we're going to eat on down the road. This is an old friend.
Further discussion on the amendment. Senator Hutchings.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was actually going to say just the opposite. I look at it as just a simple, friendly amendment. And I'm just really sorry that we kept the chairman up all night thinking about dead animals instead of sheep jumping over fences. But again, voted up or voted down. I think the bill is still a very good bill. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Further discussion on the amendment. Further discussion on the amendment. Senator Landon, go ahead.
Well, Mr. President, I appreciate the discussion. I think a lot of my concern rests with the wardens out there that we obviously don't have enough of them. And I think what this is going to be a driver for sure. They are going to get a lot of phone calls on this. And they'll be pretty much in the middle of the night because that's when you hit these animals. So I just got some real concerns. I think we're going to have some ramifications from this. If we pass it, I think this amendment makes it better. It's a good start. Without it, I think this prior authorization piece is a real killer. So thank you, Mr. President, on and for the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Ready for the question? Question on the amendment. This is third reading amendment number 1 to House Bill 95. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. No. We're going to have a division on this one. Division can call. All those in favor stand. 69. Those opposed, stand. All right. 14 no, the amendment has passed. And everybody still appreciates the good senator from Devil's Tower. All right. We're back on the bill. No further amendments. Senate File 95, having been read 3 separate times, the question is, shall the bill pass? Chief Clerk will call the roll.
House Bill 95, roll call. Anderson? No. Baldwin? Aye. Whitman? Aye. Boner? No. Bouchard? Aye. Case? No. Cooper? No. Driscoll? Aye. Ellis? Aye. French? Aye. Murphy? No. Guru? Aye. Hicks? Aye. Hutchings? Aye. James? Aye. Kinsky? Aye. Kolb? Aye. Cost? No. Landon? No. McEwen? Aye. Nethercott? No. Pappas? Aye. Perkins? No. Rothfuss? Aye. Salazar? Aye. Schuler? Aye. Scott? No. Steinmetz? Aye. Wasserberger? No. President Dockstetter? Aye. Closing vote. Closing. Vote closed. House Bill 95, 19 aye, 11 no.
House Bill 95, having received the affirmative vote of the majority of members elected the Senate, House Bill 95 has passed the Senate. Folks, in order to give you just a little more time to prepare for these concurrences, I'm going to move in some enrolled acts here, and then we'll move to the concurrences. Senator French,
Mr. President, may I have the privilege of the floor?
please do.
I've got several people in the gallery I'd like the group, Senate to recognize. First is my wife of 46 years, directly there, Becky.
Hey!
And a couple good friends, Nina Weber. And Freddie Flores Zaleb and her grandson. And to your right, Park County Commissioner Lee Livingston. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Congratulations on 46 years. Folks from Park County Country, welcome to the Senate. Please do, Senator Hicks.
Could I have the privilege of the floor?
Yes, sir.
I would like to introduce one of our longest standing commissioners from Carbon County, John Espy. If you'd please stand, help me welcome him to the Senate.
Commissioner Espy, welcome to the Senate. I can recall when I was serving on the other side of the building, a good representative from that county, Carbon County, used to get up and say, if it's good enough for Carbon County, it's good enough for Wyoming. All right, enrolled acts, no further privileges. We're at that order of business of enrolled acts. House Enrolled Act 30. Reading clerk.
House Enrolled Act number 30 being original House Bill 54, an act relating to agriculture and economic development.
I'm about to sign House Enrolled Act 30, same being original House Bill 54. So signed. House Enrolled Act 31.
House Enrolled Act number 31, being original House Bill 58, an act relating to state lands.
About to sign House Enrolled Act 31, the same being House Bill 58. So signed. House Enrolled Act 32.
House Enrolled Act number 32, being original House Bill 91, an act relating to real property and conveyances.
I'm about to sign House Enrolled Act 32, the same being House Bill 91. So signed. House Enrolled Act 33.
House Enrolled Act number 33, being original House Bill number 57, an act relating to K-12 student enrollment.
I'm about to sign House Enrolled Act 33, the same being House Bill 57. So signed. House Enrolled Act 34.
House Enrolled Act number 34, being original House Bill number 14, an act relating to rights of way.
I'm about to sign House Enrolled Act 34, the same being House Bill 14. I have so signed. House Enrolled Act 35.
House Enrolled Act number 35, being original House Bill 21, an act relating to defense forces and affairs.
I'm about to sign House Enrolled Act 35, the same being House Bill 21. I've so signed. House Enrolled Act 36.
House Enrolled Act number 36, being original House Bill number 39, an act relating to optometry.
I'm about to sign House Enrolled Act 36, the same being House Bill 39. So signed. House Enrolled Act 37.
House Enrolled Act number 37, being original House Bill 76, an act relating to the administration of government.
I'm about to sign House Enrolled Act 37, the same being House Bill 76. So signed. House Enrolled Act 38.
House Enrolled Act number 38, being original House Bill 109, an act relating to health officers.
I'm about to sign House Enrolled Act 38, same being House Bill 109. So signed. House Enrolled Act 39.
House Enrolled Act number 39, being original House Bill number 148, an act relating to fees paid through the Office of the Secretary of State.
I'm about to sign House Enrolled Act 39, the same being House Bill 148. So signed. House Enrolled Act 40.
House Enrolled Act number 40, being original House Bill 64, an act relating to the Uniform Fraudulent Transfer Act.
I'm about to sign House Enrolled Act 40, the same being House Bill 64. I have so signed House Enrolled Act number 41.
House Enrolled Act number 41, being original House Bill number 79, an act relating to real estate subdivisions.
I'm about to sign House Enrolled Act 41, the same being House Bill 79. So signed. House Enrolled Act 42, number 42.
House Enrolled Act number 42, being original House Bill 104, an act relating to trusts.
I'm about to sign House Enrolled Act number 42, same being House Bill 104. So signed. House Enrolled Act number 43.
House Enrolled Act number 43, being original House Bill number 107, an act relating to the state retirement system.
I'm about to sign House Enrolled Act number 43, the same being House Bill 107. So signed. House Enrolled Act number 44.
House Enrolled Act number 44, being original House Bill number 217, an act relating to public health and safety.
I'm about to sign House Enrolled Act number 44, the same being House Bill 217. So signed. House Enrolled Act number 46.
House Enrolled Act number 46, being original House Bill 122, an act relating to game and fish.
I'm about to sign House Enrolled Act number 46, the same being House Bill number 122. So signed. House Enrolled Act number 47.
House Enrolled Act number 47, being original House Bill 52, an act relating to school nutrition.
I'm about to sign House Enrolled Act number 47, the same being House Bill 52. So signed. Okay, let's go to concurrences. We'll need some folks on the floor for this. Namely Senator Case, and Senator Baldwin, and Senator Anderson, Senator Ellis, Senator Boner, Senator Perkins. Let's get started. Senator Case, are you ready for message number 317 on Senate File 47? Go ahead, sir.
Mr. President, I would move message number 317, the concurrence request on original Senate File 47, clinical laboratory regulation. We need to have that read in.
Yes, we do. Sorry about that. Go ahead, reading clerk.
I could still move it again.
Yeah.
Message number 317, referencing Senate File 47, clinical laboratory regulation.
Thank you. For the record, read that in again, sir.
My motion.
Or motion.
Yeah, I'll make the motion on message number 317, concurrence request, Senate File 47, clinical laboratory regulation. Mr. President, our friends down the hall did some nice work. They on line 1, page 1, line 3, they deleted an exception and inserted the word exceptions, plural. And on line 1, page 1, line 17, a shall was stricken and a may was put in. And I like that better. Page 2, line 9, it said, before the word this section, it'd be subsection D of this section. That's significant work, and I think we should give our approbation to it. So I hope that you will all support me in voting aye on the concurrence.
Motion is that the Senate do concur on Senate File 47 and vote aye. Chief Clerk, please call the roll. Oh, Senator Scott, sorry, I missed you, sir. Go ahead.
Mr. President, I have a question on this, page 1, line 15. The original bill does not have a shall on line 15. It has one on line 14. I deduce there may be something different in the engrossed copy. And if I'm right, it would then lead to say this section may not instead of shall not, and that is a mild violation of our drafting rules, I understand. And I'd like to comment on the practical effect of what they've done on page 1, line 15.
I think we're speaking on the engrossed. Senator Rothus.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just to answer the questions, since I've got the engrossed in front of me and saving the sponsor from having to do it. Bottom of page 1, line 15 currently reads in the engrossed version. A clinical laboratory shall examine human specimens only at the request of a licensed physician. The only is struck. So it's a clinical laboratory shall examine human specimens at the request of a licensed physician. This amendment would change that shall to a may based on the recommendation. So it would read, a clinical laboratory may examine human specimens at the request of a licensed physician.
Thank you. Senator, does that cover your question?
Mr. President.
Go ahead, sir.
Mr. President, that does make the change they've made make more sense than it does without the engrossed version.
Thank you, Senator. Any further discussion? All right. Motion is that the Senate do concur on Senate File 47 and vote aye. Chief Clerk, call the roll.
Senate File 47, concurrence. Roll call. Anderson. Aye. Baldwin. Aye. Weitman. Aye. Boner. Aye. Bouchard. Aye. Case. Aye. Cooper. Aye. Driscoll. Aye. Ellis. Aye. French. Aye. Murphy. Aye. Guru. Aye. Hicks. Aye. Hutchings. Aye. James. Aye. Kinsky. Aye. Cole.
Aye.
Aye. Cost. Aye. Landon. Landon.
Senator Landon, we need you for a vote, sir.
Say aye.
Landon. Aye. McEwen. Aye. Nethercott. Aye. Pappas. Aye. Perkins. Aye. Rothfuss. Aye. Salazar. Aye. Schuler. Aye. Scott. Aye. Steinmetz. Aye. Wasserberger. Aye. President Dockstader.
Aye.
Aye. Closing vote. Closing vote closed. Senate File 4730 aye.
By your vote, you have concurred on Senate File 47. Senator Baldwin, are you ready on message number 320, Senate File 52?
I am, Mr. President. This feels like Groundhog Day. Shall we read that one in again?
Please read in the bill. Or the concurrence.
Message number 320, referencing Senate File 52, Insurance, Mental Health, and Substance Use Parity.
Senator Baldwin.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move concurrence to message number 320 in reference to Senate File 52, Insurance, Mental Health, and Substance Abuse Parity. And as I've said at least one time before today, the House on the other side changed a couple of things. They took out remote. They felt that was redundant and it wasn't needed. And indeed, when you say audio or audio visual, it can be implied or inclusive remote. It's not needed. And that's the other thing they did. They included audio, and that's something we talked about in the joint committee previously. So it doesn't hurt the bill, it may help the bill some. The other thing that they did is they changed the effective date. It was April 1st, 2021, at which time we'll all be sitting here in these same seats saying some of the same things. So we really can't have it effective by then. So we changed the effective date to December 1st, 2021, in which time hopefully we're all home. I hope. I would ask for your aye vote.
Discussion on the concurrence. Motion is that the Senate do concur on Senate File 52 and vote aye. Chief Clerk, please call the roll.
Senate File 52 concurrence roll call vote. Anderson. Aye. Baldwin.
Aye.
Aye. Beitman. Aye. Boner. Aye. Bouchard. Aye. Case. Aye. Cooper. Aye. Driscoll. Aye. Ellis. Aye. French. Aye. Murphy. Aye. Guru. Aye. Hicks. Aye. Hutchings. Aye. James. Aye. Kinsky. Aye. Cole. Aye. Cost. Aye. Landon. Aye. McEwen. Aye. Nethercott. Aye. Pappas. Pappas. Aye. Perkins. Aye. Rothfuss. Aye. Salazar. Aye. Schuler. Aye. Scott. Aye. Steinmetz. Aye. Wasserberger. Aye. President Dockstader. Aye. Closing vote. Closing vote to close. Senate File 52, 30 aye.
By your vote, you have concurred on Senate File 52. Senator Anderson, are you ready with message number 316 to Senate File 44? Senator Anderson.
President.
And reading clerk, read it in.
Message number 316, referencing Senate File 44, Solid Waste Cease and Transfer Program Funding.
Senator Anderson.
Mr. President, I would move concurrence on message 316, Senate File 44, Solid Waste and Transfer Program Funding, and ask you to vote aye. The House did a good job of inserting the 2019 session laws that actually set the funding level up to 14 million. It had been a little higher before that, and they moved it to 14 million. So it's a good change, and I would ask for your favorable vote. Thank you.
Discussion on the concurrence, discussion. Motion is the Senate do concur on Senate File 44 and vote aye. Chief Clerk, please call the roll.
Senate File 44, concurrence roll call vote. Anderson?
Yeah. Aye.
Aye. Baldwin? Aye. Beitman? Aye. Boner?
Aye.
Aye. Bouchard? Aye. Case?
Aye.
Aye. Cooper? Aye. Driscoll? Aye. Ellis? Aye. French? Aye. Furphy? Aye. Guru? Aye. Hicks? Aye. Hutchings? Aye. James? Aye. Kinsky? Aye. Cole? Aye. Cost? Aye. Landon? Aye. McEwen? Aye. Nethercott? Aye. Pappas? Aye. Perkins? Aye. Rothfuss? Aye. Salazar? Aye. Schuler? Aye. Scott? Aye. Steinmetz? Aye. Wasserberger? Aye. President Dockstader? Aye. Closing vote? Closing vote closed. Senate File 44, 30 aye.
By your vote, you concurred on Senate File 44. Senator Ellis, are you ready on message number 329?
Yes, Mr. President.
Reading clerk, read it in. Sorry about that.
Message number 329, referencing Senate File 56, Wyoming Gaming Commission modifications and corrections.
Now go ahead, Senator Ellis. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for concurrence on Senate File 56 and ask for your favorable consideration. Senators, you'll recall that Senate File 56 is the Wyoming Gaming Commission making modifications and corrections. And the House really looked at our work and added some really good improvements to it. So I'm going to walk you through those right now. First, you'll see that the commission holds an annual meeting. There's been some concern about the amount of time that the commission actually meets in executive session. So the House added an amendment that would allow the legislative liaisons that are appointed to the commission to also serve, in those executive sessions. They wouldn't have a voting right, but could at least be part of those. The House also cleaned up some just kind of confusing language, things that say continuing to operate or changed to continue to operate or allowed to operate. They deleted a word directly, and this dealt with how those lab reports for the skill-based machines are submitted to the commission. The word directly was actually a source of confusion and some litigation. By removing it and providing some other assurances that applicants can't tamper with any materials they submit to the commission, that was dealt with more thoroughly in the statute. Going on to page 2 of the amendment, you'll see just some clarifying language that any person who wants to submit an application has to do so on a form prescribed by the commission. That's a conforming amendment. Again, some modifications to the extra verbiage of continuing to operate, just saying to operate. And then starting on page 8, line 21, you're going to see some, I think, really good flexibility provided within the grounds for denying an application. Right now, the bill, as we passed it out of the Senate, provided that anyone who is guilty of certain crimes not receive a permit or license to operate any of these skill-based machines. In working on this amendment, that House decided to adopt a 10-year look-back period, and that would apply for only automatic grounds for denying an applicant. It would allow the commission, though, to permissively look back those prior 10 years and make a determination based on the specific circumstance. But the concern was ultimately, what if you had a shoplifting charge when you were 20? Should that prohibit you from having a license when you're 45 from operating these skill games? Additionally, we added some language saying that any person who is convicted of a crime involving physical harm to an individual be prohibited from getting a license. The House added language clarifying that those crimes should rise to the level of felony, mainly because you have bar owners that sometimes have to get physical with customers and may have misdemeanor assault charges. We didn't want that to be an automatic grounds for denial. Certainly, the commission has the ability and authority to look at the number of misdemeanor assaults and make a determination on a case-by-case basis, but this is going to the automatic grounds of denial. And then you'll see some clarifying language that the commission can also identify rules, but just a caveat that those have to negatively impact the applicant's credibility or the security, integrity, or fairness of play of these games. Finally, they added some good language saying that if an applicant not only failed to conceal or disclose information to the commission, but if they tamper with or submit documentation that's been tampered with, that could be grounds for denial as well. Moving on to the bottom of page 2, you'll see another change that the House make. This is dealing with the definition of what is gambling and what is not. Currently, we exempt charitable and nonprofit organizations, and this would add political parties to that list. Certainly, charitable and nonprofit organizations, as well as political parties, can host bingos and raffles and casino nights. And so this is seen as a friendly amendment. And with that, Mr. President, those are the changes the House made. I think they overall improved this bill and provide some consistency with other legislation we looked at just as recent as yesterday. So I'd urge your aye vote.
Further discussion on concurrence for Senate File 56. Motion is the Senate do concur on Senate File 56 and vote aye. Chief Clerk, please call the roll.
Senate File 56, concurrence, roll call vote. Anderson? Aye. Baldwin? Aye. Beitman? Aye. Boner? Aye. Bouchard? Aye. Case? Aye. Cooper? Aye. Driscoll? Aye. Ellis?
Aye.
Aye. French? Aye. Murphy? Aye. Guru? Aye. Hicks? Hicks? Aye. Hutchings? Aye. James? Aye. Kinsky? Aye. Kolb? Aye. Cost? Aye. Landon? Aye. McEwen? Aye. Nethercott? Conflict? Aye. Pappas? Aye. Perkins? Aye. Rothus? Aye. Salazar? Aye. Schuler? Aye. Scott? Aye. Steinmetz? No. Wasserberger?
Aye.
Aye. President Dockstader? Aye. Hutchings? Aye to no. Closing vote. Nethercott? Aye to conflict. Closing vote. Closing. Vote closed. Senate File 56, 27 aye, 2 no, 1 conflict.
Motion, Senate File 56, excuse me, by your vote, you have concurred on Senate File 56. Senator Boner, are you ready on message 318?
Yes, Mr. President.
Message number 318, referencing Senate File 50, COVID-19 Business Relief Programs, Agriculture.
Reading clerk, or excuse me, Senator Boner.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would move concurrence on message 318 and urge you to vote aye. Ladies and gentlemen, what the House did is a pretty basic cleanup. We did send a bill over there that was based off more of a special session perspective than what we have now with the CARES Act funds, dealing with expenditures for a particular ag program. So they deleted the $55 million appropriation and inserted the amount to be determined by the legislature. This is standard language, as we do not know exactly how much CARES funds we have left. It's inappropriate to have a specific number here. And so that's all it does.
Senator Rothus.
Thank you. On the point of order, my apologies. I didn't hear the bill number. A few of us didn't hear the bill number. We heard the concurrence request number, but the emails are by bill. If the sponsor-
Senator Boner, restate for the record.
Yeah, Senate File 50, and just kind of going off the script here, but if that helps, it's Senate File 50. And once again, it's a bill that had the ag COVID relief programs. That's the bill that we're on. Simple amendment, making it conforming with all of the other language we have with the remaining CARES Act funds. So I'd ask for your favorable consideration.
Further discussion? Further discussion. Motion is that the Senate do concur on the Senate File 50 and vote aye. Chief Clerk, call the roll.
Concurrence for Senate File 50, roll call vote. Anderson?
Aye.
Aye. Baldwin? Aye. Beitman? Aye. Boner? Aye. Bouchard? Aye. Case? Aye. Cooper? Conflict? Conflict? Driscoll? Conflict? Ellis? Aye. French? Aye. Murphy? Aye. Guru? Aye. Hicks? Aye. Hutchings? Aye. James? Aye. Kinsky? Aye. Cole? Aye. Cost? Aye. Landon? Aye. McEwen? Aye. Nethercott? Aye. Pappas? Aye. Perkins? Aye. Rothfuss? Aye. Salazar? Aye. Schuler? Aye. Scott? Conflict? Steinmetz? Aye. Wasserberger? Aye. President Dockstader? Aye. Closing vote. Closing vote closed. Senate File 50, 27 aye, 3 conflict.
By your vote, you have concurred on Senate File 50. Senator Perkins, are you ready on message 330?
I am, Mr. President.
Reading clerk, read it in.
Message number 330, referencing Senate File 120, investment of state non-permanent funds.
Senator Perkins.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would move message 330 referencing Senate File 120, investment of state non-permanent funds. Again, Senate File 120, investment of state non-permanent funds, and ask the body to vote aye. Mr. President, just as by way of introduction, this is a bill that comes back. This is how the legislature determines who and how you invest in a certain project and in certain amounts. And this bill went through various ones and talked about how that was set the risk profile and instruct the state treasurer or his designee to invest in certain types of, authorize them to invest in certain types of risk profiles for these funds. What the House did on this is they went to page 7 of the bill, and we had, as it left this body, it said, in investing monies of a fund or account which may be invested in equities, including stock of a corporation, the overall risk profile of the investments and so on and so forth. It now reads, in investing monies of a fund or account which may be invested in stock of a corporation or other equities. So we went from invested in equities, including stock of a corporation, to invested in stock of a corporation or other equities. Mr. President, it's potato. So no harm, no foul. Don't know that it makes it better. Don't know that it makes it worse. Mr. President, the next thing they did is they went to the next page, and the sentence used to read, investments made in accordance with this section and Wyoming statute, and policies adopted pursuant to this section shall satisfy provisions of law which require funds to be invested, so on and so forth. It now reads, investments may be made in accordance with this section and Wyoming statute, and policies adopted pursuant to this section shall be deemed to satisfy provisions of law. So we went from shall satisfy provisions of law shall be deemed to satisfy provisions of law. Again, I guess it might be a slight improvement, but overall, that's all that happened with the amendments in the House to this bill, and would ask for the body's favorable consideration and would stand for questions.
Further discussion. This is on Senate File 120, concurrence. Further discussion. Motion is that the Senate do concur on Senate File 120 and vote aye. Chief Clerk, please call the roll.
Concurrence, Senate File 120, roll call vote. Anderson? Aye. Baldwin? Aye. Beitman? Aye. Boner? Aye. Bouchard? Aye. Case? Aye. Cooper? Aye. Driscoll? Aye. Ellis? Aye. French? Aye. Murphy? Aye. Guru? Aye. Hicks? Aye. Hutchings? No. James? Aye. Kinsky? Aye. Cole? Aye. Cost? Aye. Landon? Aye. McEwen? Aye. Nethercott? Aye. Pappas? Aye. Perkins? I. Rothfuss. I. Salazar. I. Schuler. I. Scott. I. Steinmetz. I. Wasserberger. I. President Dockstader.
Aye.
Aye. Closing vote. Closing. Vote to close. Senate File 120, 29 aye, 1 no.
By your vote, you can vote, by your vote, you have concurred on Senate File 120. Senator Driscoll.
Mr. President, I move we stand recess till 2 p.m.
Senator Hicks.
Well, there's a motion on the
Yeah,
floor.
okay, so you can't, you're gonna have to wait, sir. Announcements. Senator Boner.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your committee number 5 will meet today, March 30th, upon adjournment and capital extension W2 and online to consider House Bill 51 in gross meat processing programs, House Bill 158 in gross local land use planning and zoning, and House Bill 96 in gross treatment of animals.
Thank you, Senator Ellis.
Thank you, Mr. President. Committee number 6, Travel, Recreation, Wildlife, and Cultural Resources will meet at 12:30 today in the Capitol Extension Room EO5 and online to discuss interim topics.
Senator Scott.
Mr. President, I'd like to ask the members of the Education Committee to meet with me right at the front of the chamber as soon as we recess.
Senator Baldwin.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your committee number 10, the perfect 10, I might add, scheduled to meet at 7 a.m. to discuss House Bill 161, Human Life Equality, Prohibiting Discriminatory Abortion, and House Bill 162, Medical Treatment Opportunity Acts. That will be in room W006.
Senator Case.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your committee number 3, Revenue, will be meeting in 15 minutes after we adjourn down in the connector to discuss House Bill 189, mine product taxes for natural gas consumed on site. A couple of senators on that bill are Driscoll and Wasserberg.
Senator Hicks.
Mr. President, your committee number 12, Rules Committee, will be meeting in W4 Capital Extension to take up House Bill 36, Management Council membership. As soon as we can grab a bite and head down there, Mr. Chairman. So let's say in 20 minutes at 12:20, your committee 12 will be meeting in W4 Capital Extension.
Thank you. Senator Perkins.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your committee number 2, Appropriations, will continue to try harder as we take up House Bill 219, Investment Funds Committee membership, 15 minutes after we afternoon recess in room 301 and online.
Senator Driscoll.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your committee number 7, lucky number 7, Corporation Elect Political Subdivisions, will take up a continuation of House Bill 187, elected official residence requirement upon adjournment in Capital Extension W004 and online.
Senator Kinski.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your conferees on House Bill 49 agency fee revisions will be huddling over lunch as we strategize to meet with our House counterparts at 1 p.m. in W113. So we're always welcoming good ideas.
Is that online too?
And yes, the lunch is not online, but the 1 o'clock meeting is. Yeah, thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Landon, do you have some good ideas?
Mr. President, thank you. I just wanted to give some advance notice. Your Transportation Committee will go back to work, help our corporation's counterparts with House Bill 159, and we will hear that bill tomorrow upon adjournment down in W2. Thank you.
Thank you. Further announcements? Further announcements? You heard the motion. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, nay. Senate will stand recessed until 2 p.m.